That's your page right there.
Mm-hmm. And make sure you turn on the volume. And then go to my page.
That's your page.
And then you'll go and see if I'm live. Yeah, click right there. And it should be my story if I'm live.
Okay.
Yep, there we are. There we are. Hey, y'all. So we are behind the scenes of filming. I don't even know what episode this was of the Ex-Newmys, but we have been in production now for 4 months. And things are going pretty well. Things are going pretty well. Wouldn't you say so yourself? What you say?
Yeah, I think they're going pretty well. I think I think the show itself, the podcast itself, hopefully it'll be helpful to some folks. I think overall it's going pretty well. I think we got a lot of back and forth in there. A lot of good stuff is coming out as to how we navigate this thing of life after marriage, after divorce. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does say that, but I think also, so what made you decide to do this?
I think you in general, you was talking about not so much of hey, Newmys, where are we at, but where are we at? You know, as far as the raising of our kids, life after divorce, and how we can bring that to, you know, maybe potentially have a story to tell that could potentially help somebody who may be going through it. Because a lot of times, well, we don't realize that we're dealing with so much that there is a story to tell, you know, and so that story needed to be, I think in my mind, when you brought it to me, I had no apprehension about doing it at all. It was just a matter of, hey, let's have some fun with it. Let's look at it and tell our stories, because I think we have a lot of stories, a lot of emotions, a lot of good thoughts that have came from it, and I think that's why I did it. I think because there was a story to be told.
A story to be told. So you saying that for you there was a story to be told, and when I brought it to you, that was for me. I feel that it was necessary to do this because it really demonstrates. Okay, I agree. There is a story to be told. There's many stories to be told here. Mm-hmm. And because it literally talks about nearly 30 years of our life. Because that's how long we've been knowing each other, almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. So it literally talks about a 30-year span, which is 3 decades. And so it gives us insight, or gives people insight of growth. It gives people insight of, you know, trials and tribulations and coming out on the other side to let people know that there is a possibility. And so when I saw this opportunity come up for us to do this, to me, it was like, this is our way of maybe righting some of our wrongs and regarding our children, you know, especially them first 3, you know, because there was a lot that happened. Yeah. And I don't know so much with the first one, but definitely number 2 and 3. You know, there was a lot that happened in that relationship. You know, because we were going through our stages, and then when number 4 came along, you know, we brought some of the same things with us to the relationship, and that's why I think that he was very stern with his conviction was of he wasn't going to decide between either one of us. Mm-hmm. And so I think that in the beginning it was like, you know, whoever gets the child is validated that they get a good job, you know. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's how sometimes it is. Like, whoever the child loves the most, that's who gets a good job, you know. And so, and I say this because I look at it now that our kid is 21, 22, you talk to me about some things that, you know, you be like, I ain't seen him. I be like, well, you know what? I see him leaving less. However, you remember when I used to tell you about this, and you would tell me, well, you know, he would make excuses for it. But now that you see what I'm talking about, because in my mind, it was you know, it's always that underlying, you know what I mean? And so I think that now that you know, because for me, I think kids are like, I don't know. I think this is just a way for us to just literally right some of our wrongs. Like, for real. I think it was just a way for us to right some of our wrongs, because there was a lot of things that we did that, you know, we had more good times than bad times, but I think this is the way for us to really talk some of those things through, to give people insight, to help those who are supposed to help, especially our children,
Right.
to let them know that, hey, we did the best we could, and we wasn't always right, we wasn't always wrong, because we had some amazing times.
And I think for a lot of things in a lot of situations, I think there's no right and wrong way to look at things, not unless you just being totally disruptive or in a chaotic state and you doing all kind of craziness within the relationship as far as raising of our children. When I looked at it, the way I look at it is everybody has a different philosophy on how they may interject or be a part of the kid's life. Everybody has a different thought process on what relationships look like after the divorce happens and still the raising of the kids. I think what we have to do, and within looking at things, and I think people in general, you have to step outside of yourself and sometimes put those other people's glasses on. And then that way, if you're looking outside of yourself and you're taking some time to say, hey, I'm not always right, you're not always right, there's a middle ground and common ground there after the divorce does happen. And that's where I think we can shed a little light, because our experiences, and I think so many people, once they do get a divorce or they do separate from a relationship and they do have kids, a lot of things are kicked to the side. And sometimes the kids are kicked to the side by the one that's getting the short hand of the stick, meaning they don't have the kid with them, or whatever the case may be. They go on with their lives and start to live lives without their kids. That is not the process where you want to be, in my opinion. You still want to continue to stay engaged, and we both did that in a sense with our kids. We looked at it and said, hey, we still got to be a part of their lives. We still got to be the ones that are interjecting and being a parent and continuing to push those tickets forward. You had a different thought process. You were throughout this whole thing, even while we had the kids together. It was almost a good cop, bad cop. You were always the bad cop because you wanted everybody. If you made a C, that was punishment. B's and above was the status. Me, I was the fun guy. Hey, I really don't care what you make. Let's just pass the course. And sometimes that's not always the best way to do things, but we had a balance there. And what we learned over time, if I can support you, you can support my thought process, and I can support your thought process. We can be better as a team as we collectively raise the kids. But even so, after marriage, stand engaged with them on a level. And sometimes our kids don't want us to be a part of that process right now. I look at them now, but as we was going through it and they were still younger and they still needed us engaged with them, it was that way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that for you, it was always just about the balance that we had with staying engaged to the kids, no matter what was going on in either one of our lives. And I think that's important, that's and I think that was part of our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was part of our overall purpose, our overall goal in this world, and, no matter if the marriage didn't survive, we knew that because of where we came from, you being from Chicago by way of Arkansas, me being from Detroit, we didn't want our kids to end up in places where they felt like they couldn't get what they wanted to go, and we knew that there were certain environments where we didn't want our boys in, we didn't want our girls in.
Absolutely.
And it was just that simple. And so when it came time for that and to decide what was best for our kids, I think that's where you and I kind of stayed like intertwined. We were on the same mission because we did not want. And I remember our oldest daughter saying this. It was, remember she used to make a joke about when she got grown, she was going to move back to you guys' hometown of Arkansas. Mm. I was like, girl, bye. And what? She went there when she graduated high school. But so by that time, it was when we was leaving from California to, I got to Virginia. Right, and right. You were, I think, already in Korea. And so this was 2011? 2011. We got divorced in, it was 2011, 2012, somewhere up in there. And she, of course, we all left California together. And so she went to Arkansas for a little while once I got settled in Virginia. And her thing was she was gonna go to Blytheville. Because she was like, she went back to Blytheville. She was like, not no, but hell no. She's like, no. So she realized that was not where she wanted to be.
Right.
And she quickly got up out of there and she decided to join the Army, and that's what she did. And so it's been, 12 years or so, and she's been in now?
Yeah, 12, almost 13 years.
Yeah.
It's coming up on 13 years now. Matter of fact, next May will make 13 years for her. And I think what she did when she went home, and there's no knock against these great people of Blytheville, Arkansas, but what we have, and I wear this hat proudly because
you know what, I'm gonna need you to stop. It's not about the people. This is what I tell people, and I say this with much respect to everybody. It has nothing to do with where you come from.
It's the opportunity.
Exactly, and it has nothing to do with any of that. Because here's the thing, I'm from Detroit, right? Born and raised in Detroit. We have a lot of things going on there. Okay. Like when I'm talking about not chaos, I'm talking about beautiful things. Like Detroit is up and coming. Like we know that's Motor City. Like that's Motown. You understand what I'm saying?
So let me
finish. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
However, I also know that sometimes when we get back to what we recognize, we fall in sync with everybody else. I call that the Walking Dead syndrome. In other words, eventually you hang out with people that's just doing whatever. Eventually you become them because it takes a lot. Because if they got other stuff going on, now you're part of that stuff, whether it's good stuff or bad stuff, but you're not. So for me, I can go back now to Detroit and appreciate the things that it has. Like when I go to Detroit now, I'm there like a tourist. Like literally, I get dressed up and I go out there and I go take pictures and I'm walking around Detroit because I'm seeing Detroit through a different set of eyes. But if I was there consistently, I would be intertwined with everybody else's life.
So I'll make a point for you. Originally from Chicago, right? So we have kids that's in the hood of Chicago that have never been downtown Chicago. That's facts.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So you do look at it from a different lens. And it's not to sit there and say that, like when our daughter went back home, she saw things differently because we left that environment and you were open to a new world. It wasn't just about the
crime, because there's crime everywhere. There's crime here.
I'm not talking about the crime.
Okay,
you just saw things through
correct,
a different
because
lens.
let me tell you something. When I grew up, I went to one of the best high schools in the country.
Right.
However, I knew that college wasn't an option for me because of limited funding, right? So I had to go out and do something different. And so when I was in that mode of trying to figure out what I was going to do in life, I'm not going to say all we had, but the goal was to get to the plants. So what I'm saying to you is that now that we see that, like that was the goal. Like if you got to the plant, you were doing big things in Detroit. If you were working in the plant, you were part of the UAEs, right? Yeah. You were doing big things, and I'm talking about if you were at a job there where you were retired from, like my grandfather and my uncle, like you were doing big things, right? So what I'm saying to you is that getting away from that. Right, and I know now we can see things more, but after a while, we start setting different goals when we see different things. Because I'm gonna tell you something, I never ate a steak until I left home. Right, I ate cube steaks. Once I left home and I ventured out, I want me a T-bone. Now, here's the thing: will I eat a cube steak? Absolutely, but that ain't what I desire. I don't crave a doggone T-bone. I mean, it's cube steak. I crave a T-bone. But if I had never been introduced to a T-bone, then I would have only continued to crave a cube steak. No shot against it, because I'll eat one, but I'm just saying I prefer a T-bone. And so I wanted that for my kids. I knew that if they went back to where we came from, they will become a product of that. Because why? We want to try to spare people's feelings. And I know how you are. That's why you and I were once married, because you're opposite than me. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Not everybody got up out of certain situations. Some people became product of their environments. And we knew that with limited resources or limited opportunities in certain environments, our kids would not have those shots. So we chose to make sure that we didn't get back there. Right. And so right now, what we're doing with the Ex-Newmys, it gives us an idea. It gives us the say, okay, well, what was we thinking during that time? We didn't have, all we knew was what we were doing. Because think about it, you are the first one in your family to do what you've done. I don't care what it is. I don't care how you describe it. Everybody got their shot in this world. Everybody got their place. Some people are the first to write a book. Some people are the first to leave home. Some people are the first to have a kid. Some people are the first to do whatever. Everybody has their place in this world. You were the first one in your family to do what you did and retire by a certain age.
Right.
Give yourself so that is a milestone.
Right.
I don't care how you slice it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with myself. There were certain things that I did that I was the first in my family to do.
Right.
And it's just that simple. And I want my kids to do that and more.
Right.
But there's things along the way that I'm going to forget to tell my kids. Why? Because life happens. We don't have time to set all the parameters for everything and tell a story. Sometimes it's just because I said so. So I think that this platform allows us to really, really dive into those things that we fail to give them a teaching moment when it should have been a teaching moment.
So, in your estimate, the whole ideal of what we were trying to do with the Ex-Newmys is shed some light on how we parented, maybe to help somebody else just maybe going through some of the same pitfalls. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Okay. And I understand that too.
Because because I'm 52 now, and how old are you?
I'll be 55 in June the 10th.
Yeah.
If I live
And I retired from the military at 43 after 25 years. Mm-hmm. And what age were you?
I was 43.
43.
43. Yep.
And you served 25 years.
Yep.
And you retired in what year?
I retired in 2014.
Okay. So I say this because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't.
Yeah.
All we knew was that we wanted more than what we had, and we wanted to give our kids more than what we had in all aspects of the way, right? We wanted to, what I always tell the kids is that I wanted them to have choices, right? I wanted them to have choices. So for example, join the military because you want to, not because you have to. Right?
Yeah, I think we had
yeah. Do these things because you want to, not because you have to. Right? You got choices. And then if you're going to do these things, you can do these things as well because you have things that make you this and this, that and the third. Whereas that with you and I, like I said earlier, I didn't have a way to pay for college. Yeah, so for me, that was never an option. Like going to college initially was never an option because I knew once I got to college, I could probably figure out a way to get some grants and pay for the school itself. But who was going to feed me? My mother was on welfare the majority of my life. Who was going to feed me? Right? So I was like, that's not going to work. So I need to go out and make some money and figure out a way to pay for college. So for me, I didn't have any options. So with my kids, I wanted them to be able to have options. And so I think that this platform really, really gives the insight to people to let them know that, listen, there's no one way to do this. I have met people that I didn't even know where I'm from. I met people that went to the private schools and stuff. Right? I mean, I've met people in different aspects of life, right? And it's just and they're all successful in their own right. They all done things in their own right. There's no one way to do this. And I think that this is what the young kids or the younger generation of kids need to know, of adults need to know. You have to just keep certain things into play, keep God first. Like, what are some things that I can say that you used to, I mean, if somebody asks me, I can tell them what it was for you. But when you think about yourself, what are some things that you felt like helped get you through these last, I would say, 15 years? Because you and I have been divorced now for 15 years. So
I think
the last 15 years.
I think that there's a lot that goes into the process of growth and growing. I think what I did, I tried to grow in a spiritual sense as well as in a mental capacity to say, hey, these are some of the things that I think I use or could use as a springboard to continue to give me some of the things that I need, especially my faith and my prayer. Everybody knows I was raised in who knows me, that I was raised by my grandparents pretty much within church, and so I came from a faith background. So no matter what I was going through, and I've been through some tough times, and recently had some issues and stuff too, I just had a lot of faith that God will lift things up, and of course the relationships that I chose to get into, in a sense, were those things that kind of led me with my family. And I look at my family as a strength. When I can pick up a phone and I can call somebody when I need help, or when I can look to my right and left and I got people that are there to help, give me what I needed at that moment to get my life back on track. I can reach out to some of my chaplains, friends, and stuff like that I have that recently just reached out, and I, not to, call names and things of that nature, but I've had some good friends, Chef Rush.
Not to mention names.
Not to mention names, but I just really wanted to send a shout out to those people who really been there for me. You know what I'm saying? And but I can tell you that's what kind of propels me. Things like that. Those things kind of have helped me deal with 15 years of that. And people, you got to have people that you can go to, and maybe put some weight on their shoulders to take some of the weight off your shoulders, so you can continue on with life. Yeah. And that's just how it is, And my kids, of course, have been one of those integral parts of that. But when you're looking at yourself, you have to take a deep look at yourself and say, hey, I can take ownership and responsibility for the things that I'm accountable for. And I think that's what people feel at.
Yeah, and I think that's where you and I are, where we're on different journeys, right? Mm-hmm. Because for me, when you and I initially divorced, mm-hmm. I've been single, you know mm-hmm. what I mean? And so I've had no choice but to understand, like, my walk, my faith, I had to really dig deep, because I had nothing or nobody to rely on. And I don't mean that in a way where, it's different. I'm not saying I didn't have a friend mm-hmm. or a family member or something mm-hmm. that can help me. But I'm talking about that day to day. When you're in the middle of the night and you got some anxiety going on, like for me, I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody. So you were very blessed to have that person. And so I think that mm-hmm. now that we're both on those other sides, I really think that in our growth process or of our process, we're really in two different places, and I say that because when I look at where you are now in life and where I'm at now in life, and I say, you know what, we were kids.
Yeah,
we were kids
trying to figure it out.
You know what I mean? We were freaking kids, like we were kids, and the person that you are now, I think, is the person that you wanted to be, in a lot of ways. And I think about that even in our marriage, because I remember thinking about, and I know I'm going back and forth, but I'm just reflecting on how we got here, like really mm-hmm. how we got here. Right. But I just remember we were talking about it in one of the episodes, how I felt like there were things that you did differently mm-hmm. that I didn't even know who this guy was. And then I know somebody brought it to my attention. They was like, you know what, Yashika, there was never a time where you let him be who it was he wanted mm-hmm. to be. Right. Because same thing I did with my kids. I was so quick to, I'm only going to let you, get so far before mm-hmm. I'm fixing the problem.
Right.
And so if I'm doing that all the time, then there's never a time where you're trying to figure out, okay, let me work this through myself. And so that's how I was with you, and that's how I was with my kids. And so when I look at myself, and I'm like, well, was I looking for something myself? You understand what I'm saying? Because as long as I was focused on other people, I didn't have to focus on myself. Mm-hmm. And so granted, as I retire, and once I came out of that marriage and those two marriages, and here I was at an age and things were different, and I only had me, I had to dig deep. And so I think that that's where this is at. And I've always been true to who I am. But it's just amazing how when you mm-hmm. think that you know who you are, or you're in control, or myself, and the new me and all this, every year, every decade, there's something where you're like, you know what, I thought I was in control. I thought I knew me, but oh my God, I'm still learning.
So the deal is this, though. Once you continue, whether you're growing together or you're growing separately, you continue to grow, and you see that growth process happening within you, mm-hmm. From day to day, month to month, year to year, or whatever. Yeah. You see that growth process happening. You start to understand, and And maybe you was like, hey, who is that guy over there? Maybe that's the guy he
That's
really
right.
wanted to be. But guess what? He's better there than he was here because he's grown. And he's growing.
And I had to respect that. But, but it took me to, first of all, hearing somebody say that to me, right? And somebody bring it to my attention. And because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, why are you this person now when you wasn't this person with me? And someone said to me, because you didn't give him time. Like people don't transition or change at your speed or at your rate or whatever. It's when they want to.
Right.
And I'm so glad that was, because it was like you know how somebody like boop upside your head? Right. That was like a boop upside my head. And it was my brother that said that to me. Because you were with a woman that now needed you to be that way. Whereas that me, I was a little bit different because I came up different. I
don't think that was the case. I think I wanted to be that way.
And she allowed you, and I didn't allow you.
I wanted to make the necessary changes within my life to be better. And say, hey, you're a good dad, but how can you be a good husband? And so those things came to pass, and that growth process happens. And when it's happening, sometimes people don't understand it because the first thing we always would say is like, well, why weren't you that way?
Yeah, because I was offended. I was offended because I.
But there's no need to get offended. It had nothing to do with you.
I understand that now, but at that time I couldn't understand that because in my mind it's like, well, why wasn't I enough?
And I can see why you would say that, but that's not the case. People like your brother said. People make the necessary changes when they are ready to make those changes, regardless to who's in their life or not in their life.
Right.
And so when those changes come about, and it's all through prayer, it's through growth, it's through reflection and things of that nature that makes that change happen. And we can, everything is due on that. How you always say, you tell God your plans, and
if you want to hear God laugh some of your plans,
he'll get a good giggle out of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you start to do things in sync with what God wants you to do. And not saying nobody's perfect. Nobody understands that. But when you can get into the closets of your mind and you can start to actually look at yourself and blame and take some of that blame and responsibility, what you played in a situation, and say, hey, God, I just want to be a better man. I just want to be a better person. I want to be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, or a neighbor. When you start to take that responsibility upon yourself, and you start to look at yourself and say, hey, those are the changes that I know that are necessary for me to continue with this life. Because guess what? Just like that, things can change.
Y'all, if y'all haven't subscribed to the Ex-Newmys over on YouTube, make sure y'all do so. I will drop the link below and up top. All right? But let me ask you a question. When did you have any goals for yourself? What was the goal? Like I remember because our divorce became final in 2010, but we literally went our separate ways for sure in 2014. By 2013, the end of 2013, 2014, we were like, you do your thing, I'm doing my thing. We're no longer because remember, there was a lot of things we did after the divorce to include therapy. Couple therapy, whatever. So we deployed. So there was a lot that went on. And if you guys check out the Ex-Newmys, you'll get all these stories over on YouTube. Okay. But anyway, there were a lot of things that we did up in that time frame that we really had to wait until our life was settled. So that didn't really happen until around 2014, the end of 2013, 2014.
It was 2014.
Yeah, when our life was really settled. We were back from deployments. We were back in the ring of things, swing of things, and we were settled now. So I say that because although we divorced in 2010, because we still slept in the same bed, we still lived in the same house for the beginning of our divorce. It wasn't until you went to Korea that we actually went apart.
So when I look at some of the goals within that, though, when you're sitting there saying you're thinking about the goal is to get an understanding about yourself, and where you're at, and that was of course, in that time frame, you're trying to figure out, where were the mishaps, where did I go wrong, and things of that nature. You're trying to figure all those things out, and so but. The goal for me was to figure out me and then to get better for me, and then to eventually live again, and and do things in a different way.
Yeah.
And so those things, when you look at it, you start to think about it, and you say, okay, if I can address me first, just me, not worried about what happened in the past, it's so much, but if I can address me and start to clean me up a little bit,
right?
And once you can clean yourself up a little bit, you can start to think a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to address yourself first.
Yeah.
And we always
quick to blame you.
That's
you.
it.
It was you.
I'm gonna point the fingers.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's what happens within relationships when they fail.
Absolutely.
I can point the finger at you. I would look at you. I'm not looking at all the wrong I've done, but when you can start to address yourself and dig deep within yourself, and I'm saying this with so much emphasis because I think so many people, and including myself, I want to cast the blame to everybody else. Newmy is a perfect individual. No, sir, that ain't the way it is.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking that you're that perfect individual, and you start drilling down to yourself and what you have to play and your role to play in it. And sometimes I can remember my grandfather telling me this one time, and I was going through something. He said, "Hey," he said, "Boy, I see you in them streets." And I see you in them streets, and I'm gonna tell you something. When they come back to you, you ain't gonna know how to act.
Yeah.
And that's most men.
Yeah.
And men, we have the audacity, this thing within ourselves that we can do whatever we want to do, but when it happens to us, we can do 15 different things to somebody, and guess what happens?
Yeah,
that
one
thing
to you.
It's done to you. You can't deal with it.
Yeah, and not to cut you off, but I think that's one of the things. I mean, I realized that I was an asshole.
You were.
And what I mean by
I'm gonna give you an amen,
baby. And I don't mean that in a way where, in other words, like I've never been defined by the word be. I'm one of them people that I'm so in your face that can be a little bit much for people.
It can be much for a man because that's what a man don't want.
Yeah. Because when your slip was showing, baby, I would let you know your slip is showing. Hey, your slip showing. But the difference was but it is too much for some people. But the difference is this: I would never let you figure out things on your own. I would figure it out with you.
Right.
But I won't let you sleep on it. Why? Because in my mind, I see the better in everybody. But what I recognize now is that not everybody is ready to see that. And I cause a lot of ruckus in our relationship because there was things about you that I tell you all the time. I remember I used to tell you, I would be hurt more if you violated our what? Friendship more than our marriage. That was more important to me. And so there were things that I saw in our marriage, not our friendship. And I'm like, he's not being the best person he can be. And I was an asshole about it. You know what I mean? I was an asshole about it. Now, I did a lot of things that I thought wives supposed to do. But there was things that I'm like, no. Because it got to a point where over here you're my friend, but over here you're my husband, not my friend. Because see, what I used to tell you about our situation is that when I would say something to you, you wouldn't hear me. But if somebody else said those same words to you, you would hear it. Why? Because I wasn't. Because see, when you deliver something without compassion, it's hurt, right? When I tell somebody something without compassion, then I'm delivering them hurt. And a lot of times I would say things to you without compassion.
Right.
You know what I mean? And looking back, I recognize that.
And that's where the mirror, when you can hold the mirror up to yourself, just like we were talking about right then. Right. Now you can continue to better yourself. I've held that mirror up to myself. This is some of the things I can say that I did not do right, or I did wrong, I need work at.
But you know what I recognize though? What? At this age, at this big old age, at 52.
Well, you're pretty old now.
Yeah. You know what I recognize? There are people in this world that so appreciate that.
Yeah. But you got to know your audience too.
And that's it.
You got to know your audience.
That's it.
Because if you're dealing with a man, and 99.9% of us men out here, we only got one thing to hold on to, and that's our pride.
Yeah.
And you know, I know what the Bible says about pride, but sometimes that's all a man got.
Yeah.
And the woman that's in his life needs to understand that.
And that's where you and I, to sum this thing up, and I'm so glad you said that, That's how you and I can sit here now as friends
and have a discussion
and platform, because for you being the person you are, that doesn't work for you as your woman,
right?
But it works for you as your friend.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you can look at, and that's the difference.
And that's the difference.
That's the difference. And
because as a woman, you can't. That's not something you need.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's knowing your audience,
Yeah.
and I think that's what a lot of people feel that you don't know your audience.
Yeah.
You don't know how to cater to that audience, and when you're young and you're going through things, you feel like you are the audience as well as a person that just got to cater.
And I've
to.
had men, and I've had one man tell me that of my personalities, and I'm just like, wait a minute, hold up. And it's not that I'm disrespectful. It's just that I don't give you it's like I say things that's just like.
But as a man,
it's
they gotta take it as disrespect.
You know what I mean? Because I'm feeling like in my mind, I guess because I don't want nobody to cut corners with me. If my slip is showing, I want you to tell me. And I've always been that way. That's why you can do whatever, you can say whatever, but I'm gonna always be like, and I come back because.
Let me show you. Let me show you the difference with that though. Mama always taught you what? It ain't what you say.
It's how you say it.
And so knowing your audience would allow you to say that correctly so you can convey what you want to say in a way that I'm receptive of.
But I feel...
And that's what relationships miss so much.
But I feel that...
You feel as a woman, you want to go like this.
But here's the thing, though. Here's my thing, though. If I'm your wife, I feel that you've already entrusted that in me once you asked me to marry you, that I'm making the best decisions for us. So if I'm telling you, hey, dog, your slip is showing... That's what I meant, motherfucker. Your slip is showing. Get it together. No. Once you chose me as your wife, you're telling me that I am okay with who I am, and you accept that. Because the person that I am, that I was in 2000 when we got married, you can honestly say I'm still the same person 25 years later.
Okay, let's say you're that same person, right? You got to learn, though, within that mindset. Yes, you were chosen as the wife. But does that mean you as the wife can whatever comes up come out? No, it
doesn't. But if you're not telling me anything different, in other words, we got a Houston, we got a problem. Give me a solution. You don't give me a solution. I gotta provide a solution, which means if I gotta provide a solution, guess what? I'm in charge.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. See, that's one of the things that's different when you looking at it. Okay, within our household, you handled all the finances, right?
That's not all.
But listen, I'm giving you an example.
Okay.
I can sit there and say to you, you were tremendous in that area, right?
Okay. Thank you.
So when we're looking at things, and you're saying to yourself, hey, yeah, I'm in charge of the finances. And I look at my man and I say, but he's still in charge of the overall well-being of our home. See, when you start to take that, and a lot of things I can sit there and say, hey, yeah, my wife did this, my wife did this, my wife did that. But when you sitting there as a man, you don't ever want to give up that final say. But I would defer to you, but a man needs to feel like he's in that position. If he's earned it. But
let me ask you something. First, this is a two-part question. First of all, because you just said if you've earned it, do you think you've always earned it? And let's put that there. Okay? And then second part is, although these are things that I said to you behind the scene, did I ever make anybody else think that it was anything different with us?
No, never. Okay. Never. But even behind the scenes, this is the way.
Because I wanted you to know that your slip was showing, Joker. I don't have to. We have 4 kids because I don't know how else. We have 4 kids. At this time, we have 4 kids. We had other people in our family that depend on us, and just as they do to this day. Right? We are the mules in our family. Right. Okay, the workhorses in our family. Right. Your family and my family. Right. So I say this to say that so we didn't have time to just lick our wounds. Like we had to okay, it's a wound, put a band-aid on it and keep going. And keep pushing. So when you would sit too long on something, I couldn't, because things were moving fast, Newmys.
And understood. So when people get into these lows or these tough spots within their life, they got to look at it and try to figure it out together. You cannot belittle or make somebody feel insignificant within their role.
So give me an example where you felt like I
No, I'm just saying this,
because I want to know
I'm
if
not
I
saying,
did.
not belittle. Maybe that's but make the insignificance of it all. You jump in. Oh, you taking too long on X, Y, or Z. I just jumped in and did it. Sometimes that's not the right
And
course
I
of
get
action.
it. I
That's
get
not
it.
the right course of
And I'm
action.
going to tell you one example of this while we're on this live, because it's going to be on one of the episodes. And that's why y'all need to make sure that y'all subscribe to the Ex-Newmys
Listen, don't listen
over
to
on
don't-
YouTube.
don't-
Okay.
Don't listen to this example.
Okay, but this is
probably
example.
something that's going to make you look like a damn eel, like all the episodes do.
Okay, so listen, this is an example of what I'm talking about. The BMW, the 318.
I don't even want to talk about that mess. There you go with that nonsense again about that damn BMW. Hey, we're going to skip over that. Period.
Okay, so the moral of the story with the BMW, and you got to go over on the Ex-Newmys when we go and check out the video. So I say this because, again, this was that, and I'm not going to go into that story because I don't want to tell that story again. Because I've told it a million times.
You should never tell it.
And I will tell it again, okay? I will tell it again soon.
No, we don't want to hear this.
So we're not going to tell it. But what I will say is this. In those moments, right, I was very limited on my capabilities because I was 250 pounds and I was pregnant. I was 9 months pregnant with your son, who was freaking 2 weeks late, okay? He had a due date of July 30th. That joker didn't come to August the 17th, okay? So, with that being said, there were very limited things that I can do because I was so big in being my pregnancy. And so, I say this because I wasn't trying to, but I knew that there would be a rollover problem if we didn't take care of this smaller problem.
Okay, got it.
And so, when it came to the car at that time, I said, hey, do this. And the thing about it is that because you were with me the day that I picked that car up, was you not? Was you not with me in 1997 when I picked that car up in Heidelberg, in Heidelberg, Germany? You were right with me. So you know that car, that particular car, if it's set too long without being started, because it was a computer.
Yeah.
There were so many things going on with it that what I say is because so what I meant by that was I was trying to explain to you during that process. I can't drive the car because it's too low down, and I can't get in and out the car because I was so big. So I need you to drive the car because if not, these things are going to happen. And so when you didn't do it, and then it became a bigger problem later, it was one of those things that I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't need, because then it ended up being where we had to spend more money. Right? And so it became a problem because now what I was trying to prevent is from us getting to that.
Okay, so sometimes our inability, whether it's men or women, to act, sometimes the other person does have to step in and act. But it always goes, and no buts. It always goes to how you act in that situation.
So why do you feel like at any point that I was challenging you?
Sometimes it is.
Because
it's know who you are as a person.
To get us, but the thing about it though, Numa, is that I would never ever talk about anything that I did not have. Like, Jerry, listen, if you do this gonna happen. So, because why? I live my life in a triad. My education, my experience, and my hood gut instincts. And if either one of those things, because I have gotten,
with them three things, have any of them ever been off and wrong?
No. One of them are always right.
One of them is right.
One of them is always right.
Okay.
And then when my experience and my education is always trumped by my instincts. I have had dreams about you. You know this. I have been in debt with things because I rely on my instincts. I rely on the ancestors. I rely on all those things. And so for me, you've seen proof of what I'm saying. So there were times when I'm telling you that, hey, we can't do this. And so because I know, and this is why you and I are friends, because no matter how harsh I am with you, you still don't cut me off. You keep me around because I'm going to put that mirror to your face and say, hey, man, even though you have a whole wife, right? I'm going to put a mirror to your face and say, hey, why? Because we still have things that we have to do together. We still have things that the ancestors charged us with to move forward.
Yeah.
Our family, our kids, the whole 9 yards. And so with that being said, is that although I'm not your wife, you have, you know, and I'm your baby mama, your ex-wife, whatever the case may be, we have business together. I'm still going to be that person that, you know, I have proven to you time and time again that I'm trustworthy.
Okay, so
my opinion matters.
So one thing that needs to be said though within that process, and I've said it before, we sometimes have to conduct our business in a way that you can look at it and say, hey, I feel that I'm not stepping on your toes. I'm not making you feel offended. And I just want you to know this. And that way, with the kids, the future, because we're always intertwined at the hip because of the kids.
But Jerry, you can't tell me that every time I've said something, you've been receptive.
No, I have not.
You know,
Because
and I mean, and when you think about it, how many times have I put us on the wrong path in life?
I can't say many.
And so what I'm saying to you is a lot of times my decisions about our kids, about like even when it came to our oldest daughter's money, when it came to the second daughter's being on certain things or not going back to whatever because it ended up happening this way if she had to stay with us. I mean, there's so many things that I can go back and forth with that I'm like, listen, it's not, and I don't know how to tell you that, hey, there's something I feel because I told you when it comes to my feelings, it trumps everything. And I don't know how to tell you that.
Sometimes this is what we gotta look at. Emotional decisions when you're in relationships. Sometimes they trump everything, okay. and they do not make sense in a logical way because we're emotional beings sometimes, and sometimes those emotional feelings take charge and they may steer us the wrong way. Yeah. There's a balance that has to happen there. So when we're talking about relationships and we're talking about, you know, where maybe there was some emotional feelings there and not logical decisions. That's what captivates the moment. And we got to get out of the emotional side of it so much and think more logically, because that's the way I look at it sometimes. My emotions have gotten in my way of a lot of things, and you say things, you do things, and you react a certain way. And those emotional things can hurt people's feelings, can make people go to the left or to the right and not be on board with the entire mission. And I think the whole part of this thing is, hey, you're going to have those emotional things, but you need to be logical thinkers in that process. And if you're not a logical thinker in that process and take the emotion out of it, my good friend always tell me, he said, you lead the train. You are the engine, son. And when you stop being the engine, that's when the problems occur.
Yeah.
Be the engine, be that beacon of light when there is no light, and you will see what I'm talking about. A good friend of mine tells me that all the time. And I look at it and I say, hey man, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Let me get that emotion out of it.
Absolutely.
And if I'm the man, take the emotion out of it. But one thing that happens though, we as a man, we are emotional just like you women are in a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
And we got to get into the mindset. Yeah. And it's a hard practice to do.
Yeah. And us women, we have like in our mind, you know, because there's some things that we're, you know, we believed. We believed because it's what people told us. So there were certain characteristics of a man that we didn't want to see as women. And I know for a fact that I remember, and I'm gonna be honest, I remember the first time I seen you cry. Right? I was taken back by that. You know what I mean? Because in my mind.
So what did you think? What did you think? What, I was weak? Or
no.
What did you think? Well, yeah, because I can see with the well.
I won't say that, but I will say, well, why are you crying? Because I can't remember what it was about, but I remember my thoughts. And it was one of those things where, like, get it together. It was like, but you got to remember, I'm telling you, that was me as a 20, 30-year-old woman.
Okay,
right? Because I only had what I was told.
So
I didn't know no better. Remember, I also thought that it was okay for you to fight your spouse at one point in my life.
Yeah, I know.
You understand what I'm saying? So, why? Because, you know what I mean? Because of what I seen. So, there was a lot of things that I had to unlearn.
So, what I will tell you this. those emotions, what you probably saw there, were probably helping me from doing something really
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely.
And so when if a man sit there and he sheds a tear, you better be thankful that that tear is probably being shared, because somebody could be really hurt in that process.
All that's true. I'm sure it's true. I'm not a man. I don't know.
I'm just telling you.
But what I do know is that as a woman, there were certain things that I just remember, specifically in the relationship or in the marriage, thinking about at certain points, right? But then it wasn't. But one thing I know about me is that I'm very open to change. I'm very open, and I don't mean change day to day. Let me rephrase that, because old people don't like change. When it comes to certain things, I'm okay with if you could show me something different, and I'm like, okay, I can get with that.
I can get
correct.
on
That's how I am. So when it came to certain things, if I was introduced to something that I did not know, I was okay with. You know what? That's something I can support.
That's something I can get on board
Yeah,
with,
and so for
right.
me, I knew that you were that way, and so I remember just the first time, but I remember moving forward after that. It was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like it was okay. Like I was okay with it, right?
Some
it wasn't,
things you gotta understand and put the other person's glasses on, because they're not. I can't tell you what it's like to be a pregnant woman, but I sure did put your glasses on when I seen you in that room and they had to cut you open.
Yeah,
that was a little bit different thought process, and that boy wasn't breathing for a few minutes there, and I'm looking at it like,
absolutely.
And you
As
go
a
through
parent,
that.
so
you go
absolutely.
through that. You put those glasses on, and you start to look at things, and you start to observe it, and you be like, okay, all right, I can take that in. But as we wind up here and we talking about where we're at, and I encourage people to come in and check out the show, the Ex-Newmys, and come and look at it, and you can draw your own conclusions about what it's about, or how you feel about it. But I think we have some things that we put out, and what we want to try and develop in a sense to help young couples, or help with the process. And just talk it through.
Because if I ran down his resume, you guys would be impressed. But please. But at the end of the day, when we talk about life, there wasn't a roadmap. There wasn't no one direct roadmap to get here. What I do know is that we are very transparent in how we got here.
Try our best to be.
And we took the stuff on the chin, because I'm telling you, there's times when I promise you he want to fight me.
But I don't.
He want to fight me a lot of days. And I'm talking about since we've been divorced. Okay? Since we've been divorced. Because, again, I'm going to put that mirror in front of him, because he know that's who I am. Because I know that our mission in this world is just not about us. It's never been about us as individuals. I know my plan in this, my mission in this world was never about me. God told me this from the beginning. So I know that you and I align pretty well in that aspect, that it's never been about us. It's about the greater good.
It's about the greater good.
Yeah.
And what kind of,
legacy and generational curses that we want to get rid of. And I mean, we've been through some things. We've seen some things. We've been through some hardships. We've been through some. But what I will say is that we've had more great times than bad times.
Yep.
And that's when we were married and outside the marriage, before the marriage and after the marriage.
Yeah.
I know for me, I've had more great times than bad times. Like, there's 365 days in a year. I mean, 15 days in a year is my average of about sad days. After that, I'm it's on and popping.
Yeah.
So listen, if you guys have not subscribed to Ex-Newmy, go on and do so. We are literally about a little over 3 weeks before the first premiere will be on YouTube, which is April the 14th. Which, I don't know if you guys know this, but April the 14th is National Ex-Spouses Day.
I didn't know that myself.
April the 14th is National Ex-Spouses Day. So it's your day to celebrate your ex-spouse. So as we were coming together to decide a date in which to go ahead and drop the first video on YouTube, it was like, what better day than to celebrate Ex-Spouses Day?
You know what?
Okay.
I know nothing about no Ex-Spouses Day.
Ex-Spouses Day. So that's the day that our YouTube channel will go live with the first video. It's already live, but I'm talking about the first episode of the Ex-Newmys. And I'm telling you, this is one you guys do not want to miss. So go on over to YouTube, subscribe to the Ex-Newmys, and turn on your notifications, because when we drop videos, you want to be the first to know. Okay? Because they're going to be chart topping, and you're going to want to be a part of the conversation. So We will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.
Let's go check us out.